My dress is wrinkly, but you guys are gonna have to deal with it. Hello again, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be making a modernized version of like a Regency-esque gown. Now this style has been pretty popular lately, both with the Selkie dresses and with Bridgerton, and that's the show's success. If you haven't seen, I actually did make a more historical version of a Regency gown, which I will link somewhere. But today we are just going to be making a fun spring summer dress. Now I found this gauzy material that has leaves and little sprigs on it in the like nursery section of Joann, but I'm using it for this dress anyway. And since it's nice and thin, I thought it would be a great candidate for a nice gathered muslin bodice. And I will link a really good article about the history of muslin and the specific type of muslin that was used in the Regency period and popularized at that point in time. It's really fascinating and I highly recommend you check that out. But this is just some gauze material. It's not even really muslin, but it's nice and airy and fun. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you would like more historical inspired dress content. I really want to do other ones that are inspired by the silhouette of dresses. I know a ton of other people have done similar things to this in the past, but I really enjoy incorporating those historical aesthetics into my everyday wardrobe. But anyways, let's get into it. To start out, we are just cutting out our pattern, and I'm using the same pattern I used for my Bridgerton gown, which is the Sense and Sensibility Regency gown pattern. For the back piece, I'm actually taping the two back pieces together to make one big piece. This was a decorative seam as far as I could tell from my first version of this, so I didn't feel bad about cutting it. And then we are cutting big strips of fabric that will be gathered down to cover the bodice pieces. And here is that. I just ran a gathering thread through, arranged the pleats, and now I am trimming off the excess. Once that was trimmed, I then just did a running stitch all around the entire thing to keep all of those in place without needing to use a billion pins. And I did 2 lines of stitches so that I could stitch right through the middle of them, like so. And I'm just using a simple straight stitch, using the edge of the foot as my seam allowance. Once that is done, I removed all those pins and flipped it right side out. So this was just done along the neckline and the back, so that top edge would be nicely finished. And for the neckline, I also clipped the curve. Very important. Hello, we are on the floor. I don't know if you can see me, but we're on the floor. And I just wanted to show you how far I've gotten. So these are my sleeve pieces. I decided to go with this pattern instead of any other pattern because I really enjoy the shape of these sleeves. I thought they made a very nice, subtle little puff without having too much volume, and I think they're a really cute length. And then here are some of my bodice pieces. So I think combining the side back and the back pieces of the bodice really helped and kind of streamlined the process. It would be such a pain to have to cover 5 of these pieces instead of the 3 that I have. So that was good so far, and I'm having a little trouble making the gathers look neat, but I think that should be fine if they're not perfectly neat and end up being a little bit messy. But here is one of the back pieces, and then here is the front. So one thing I do remember about this pattern is that the neckline is kind of high, which I'm not too bothered by because it bothered me more with the Regency because of how low cut the corset was, but with modern bras and stuff, that should end up being fine. Yeah, I'll check in with you guys later. Now we can cut out long strips of fabric for our waistband and our sleeve bands, which here I cut out 2 waistbands, which you will see why soon enough. But one of the waistbands is going to be folded inwards to cover all of those raw edges. And then here are my 2 sleeve bands, which are basically the same, just a bit shorter. Now we can go ahead and gather down the bottom edge of the pieces that are covering the bodice pieces. And arrange those as neatly as possible. Once that is done, we are also going over this with a running stitch, but this is only 1 running stitch instead of the 2. And then once again, the excess is cut off. Here is the beautiful piece ready to be put together. And then I am just sewing the side seams with that same straight stitch, and I will pick out those running stitches after that's all nice and in place. For the sleeves, I opened them up so that the lining pieces were together and the front pieces were together, and this just makes sure that all of the raw edges are nice and hidden in between. Alrighty, so I have the bodice sewn together and this is how it is looking. There's still a billion pins holding these gathers in place. I'm gonna iron them flat to hopefully get them to stay a little better, but it's looking really good. I need to do some gathering here to make sure it fits nicely in the waistband, and right now it's just sitting on me. It's not closed in the back in any way, but I'm really happy how it's looking. I'm pretty proud of how the gathers are. They look a lot neater than I was thinking they were gonna end up, so yeah, I'm pretty pleased. Now we're gonna iron that all down to keep it in place. I still left a few pins in some of the more finicky gathers, but this helped keep it where it belonged. And then we can fell down those side seams. So I trimmed the lining short and then turned the gauzy fabric over it and the raw edge under. And then I'm just stitching it down. Now we can work on the sleeves. So first things first, we are sewing the sleeve bands into a loop. And so here we are doing right sides together. And now wrong sides together, so that raw edge is nice and tucked away. In between these two steps I did trim the seam allowance down, but I did not film that. And then we can gather it. So I'm just using white thread this time because it was what was in my needle and I didn't feel like wasting that thread. We're going to put the armband inside and arrange the gathers to lay nicely across the band. And then that gets stitched down. Once that was done, the edges got turned upwards to cover the raw edges, and then that is getting whip stitched into place. Now that that's done, we can gather the top of the sleeve, which is the same, and fit that into the arm side. And that gets stitched on the same way again. And now we are going to gather down under the bust and in the back so that it fits onto our waistband, which is right here. And the gathers arranged so that they lay nicely once again. Lots of gathering, lots of repetitive steps here. And then I'm adding a second waistband so that the raw edge will be encased inside the two. And now we can cut out the skirt. So I just cut out two really wide panels and cut one of them in half for an opening for the zipper. And then these are going to be French seamed together. So they got pinned wrong sides together. and it will be stitched. And then it'll be flipped and then sewn again. And I also did the hem, which I forgot to show you how I ironed it up, but I just folded it once, folded it twice, pinned it down, and I'm doing a nice hem. Once the skirt is all together, we can now gather it down. Yet again, so much gathering. And once that's done, we're arranging it, attaching it only to one of the waistbands, the one that will be visible from the outside of the garment, and making sure the gathers are evenly arranged, yet again. And then that got stitched down. Then I trimmed off all of the excess gathered material since it was really bulky. And then that raw edge got turned under and over the seam allowance for the skirt so that it was tucked away. And then, just like we did the sleeve band, we're whip stitching it down. And somehow I neglected to film the zipper process, but here's the final dress.
Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed this project. It's so fun and light and airy, which I appreciate because it is currently very hot in my apartment and I'm sweating a little bit, but you don't need to know that. If you like this video, please give it a like and let me know down in the comments if you would like me to do more of these like historically inspired dresses or using historical patterns to make something a little more wearable. And yeah, please subscribe if you'd like to see more. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay, bye!